Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another of these brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dino Tracker figures, and this time we begin checking out the Strike Attack line as we have the Prestosuchus. Now this is one that I'm a little torn on because originally when I had seen the images I thought it looked pretty awful. I think the sculpt looked really weird. The head sculpt in general looks way off compared to what I would expect to see on a Prestosuchus. And just in general, there's definitely a lot of artistic liberties taken with this figure. In hand, I will say that it's a little nicer than I expected. And the detailing does look really nice, which I should have expected because it's a Mattel release. They usually have really nice sculpt and detail. But it does still look very goofy. It does still look really far off from what a Prestosuchus should look like. And again, as I said, it absolutely is overloaded with artistic liberties taken by whoever sculpted this at Mattel. That being said, if you look at it from the standpoint of being kind of like, some sort of a weird version of a Prestosuchus in the Jurassic franchise, because they're never technically full-blood versions of the animal, you, I guess, can look past the massive amount of inaccuracies and look at this as maybe that's what it would look like in the Jurassic franchise. I mean, you look at the Giganotosaurus, it looks far off from what an actual Giganotosaurus would look like, and of course the same can be said for many other dinosaur designs within the franchise. So I guess it's not the end of the world, especially since it's a Jurassic World figure, that it does look pretty far off from what a Prestosuchus would look like. But you can see, again, we have pretty much your standard when it comes to the packaging that you usually have for Mattel. And then here on the back, you can see, again, a sneak peek of the figure right there, as well as some images of all of the other figures that are in this wave of Strike Attack figures, and all of those will also be up for review very soon. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out. So here is our Prestosuchus, now released from its packaging and looking kind of cool. I mean, I do like the coloration of it. I really think they did a great job of choosing the tones of color, and of course the paint application looks nice. As always, it would have been nice to have paint running out onto the tail, but I don't think it takes away from this figure all that much. I think it still looks really good, and again, like I said, the fine detail does look really nice on it. It's just the biggest problem I have, I don't even mind this sort of like fin-like appearance that they've given it. That doesn't even really bother me that much, even though I wouldn't expect a Prestosuchus to have that. It's the head sculpt. It's like super thick. It's got almost like a V-Rex kind of look to it. It just looks so weird, and it's strange to see how far off of a appearance this has. If you look at most Mattel figures, they're usually kind of close to what the creature looks like. Not always, but most of the time. And even looking back to Mattel's release of the Prestosuchus, that looked a lot closer to what I would expect a real Prestosuchus to look like, more so than what we see here with the Prestosuchus. But again, it is still just meant to be a really cool toy. It is something that's at least bringing species like this to light into the minds and eyes of kids and everything nowadays, and of course giving us even more incredibly cool figures in the Jurassic line to collect. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Prestosuchus, you can see some really nice looking scale detail and skin texture throughout the face of the creature. You can also see the nostrils sculpted out right there. And you have a nice brown tone here for the upper side of the head. As you move down to the lower jaw, which also contains some really nice looking skin texture. I actually really quite like that area. You can also see we have a light gray for that area. And the light gray does begin to travel down the underside of the figure, but it only reaches the throat before tapering off. At least it's a smooth transition as it tapers away. You can also see that we have some random ridges running up and over the snout of our Prestosuchus, and we also see more of those there above the eye, which is a very interesting take, as is the very crocodilian interlocking teeth, which I'm also not a big fan of for this figure. I think it looks kind of cool, but when it comes to what I'd expect on a Prestosuchus, not so much. It does have an action feature, which we usually wait to see the action feature. We're going to activate it now, because now we get to look at the inside of the mouth. So you can see we've got a really nice looking tongue sculpt in there, very nice texturing to the tongue, very nice realistic tone of color, I would say, as well. And you can also see that color is up here on the upper side of the inside of the mouth as well. And you can also see all of the teeth are sculpted individually, and they look pretty good. I do like the fact that they kind of have them like just so kind of sporadic as far as the placement goes. When you look at it, like they could probably make a pretty cool V-Rex figure. Again, I don't like the fact that it does have these, but I think it at the same time kind of looks cool, I guess, for that, Jurassic World version of a Prestosuchus. Like I said earlier, I'm really kind of torn on this one. I don't really know how to feel about it. But as we lead up here into the face, you can see we have the eye that's nicely painted with an orange orangish tone. Doesn't look like we actually have a black pupil, it's just the dark brown, but it looks okay for what it is. It doesn't look awkward or anything. You can see the brown kind of lead back here into the neck a little bit, but that's really all we get of that color before we transition to a greenish tone for the majority of the body. Fairly dark green, and you can see again some more really nice looking skin texture, kind of large scaling as we move through the course of the figure. You can see some wrinkles right there behind the lower jaw, some more skin wrinkles as we move down the course of the neck and down into the throat. As we lead down a little further, you also see some more right here in front of the initial leg here, and you can also see that kind of almost sail-like or fin-like beginning here to that appearance to the figure starts to pick up right at the bottom of the neck. We also see some light greens begin to show up, and they kind of stripe through, and I think that looks pretty neat. Definitely a really nice visual, and that tone of color plays off of the darker greens quite nicely. As you move down here into the front leg, you can see some nice muscle definition, some nice bending there in the elbow, some nice creasing in the skin there, the elbow itself, as well as a pretty nice looking foot sculpt with, unfortunately, no painted nails, but we do have kind of a gloss coat on those. As you can also see, we obviously have an articulated jaw, which the upper and lower jaws both articulate. That's part of the action feature. But of course, we also have articulation in the legs, forward and back. Very nice, very smooth, and then out away from the body as well. So some extra articulation there. But as you move back a little further into the body, you continue to see the same style of scale detail, but there is a lot of really nice sculpt to the figure. You can see all sorts of difference when it comes to the appearance of the skin texture and scales. It looks really, really cool. As we move back a little further, you continue to see that green striping moving along. You can also lead down here into the thigh, pick up on the nice muscle definition. Again, those very big, bulky scales that this has. You can also see the knee there and the calf muscle nicely shining in the sculpt. And then as we lead down into the foot sculpt, you again have scoots running down the toes. No paint for the nails, but they kind of have a slightly glossy look to them. But as we lead back up here into the tail and we lead out into the tail, you can again see the nice looking scale detail. You now have that almost fin-like appearance on the upper and lower part of the animal. Moving out into the tail, you also have some larger osteoderm-like scales leading out, and you can see a nice curve to the tail as we lead out. And then the underside also has a very nice, almost crocodilian-like look to it, to the scaling here of the underside, which looks pretty good. You know, it becomes a little muted here in the chest region, but overall it looks pretty decent. You're not really going to see much of anything different on this side that you didn't just see on the initial side, except for the fact that both legs are a little bit further forward over here compared to what we had just seen on the initial side. Again, we do have articulation on the rear legs as well, forward and back very nicely, and they do move out away from the body a little bit. And as always, we've got that swivel tail if you really want to mix up that sort of fin-like appearance that we have going on. But overall, again, it's definitely not the best interpretation of a Prestosuchus I've seen. I think at this point Safari Ltd would hold that claim, but it's still kind of cool, I guess, for being, you know, a random off-the-wall sort of Mattel version. And again, as far as the action feature goes, you've got a little button here. It just opens and closes the mouth, which is a pretty cool action feature for this type of figure. We also have the Jurassic Facts app code, if I can figure out where it is. There it is. It's actually really well hidden. That's really nice. We don't often get one so well hidden, but there's the code if you would like to add it to your collection. Once you press that down, like, well, I guess it's a little bit more obvious on this side because of that area right there. But when you look at it over here, it's actually pretty hard to take note of. So this would definitely be the superior side, I would say, to display it from. But as far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about 8 inches or just a hair under, or around 20 centimeters. And then for a height, I don't know what the highest point would be. Maybe the head about 2.5 inches or just shy of about 6.5 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity for the top of the head. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Prestosuchus from Mattel. And you can definitely see that it pretty much sits there right in the size range you would expect for a standard Strike Attack figure. At this point, you know, it's few and far between where we get a Mattel figure that we'd be very unsure of the size, and especially when it comes to like a Danger Pack or Strike Attack or something like that, you're always going to have a pretty good idea ahead of time what the size range is, but hopefully, if not, this will help you out. And for one more comparison, we have a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus just to step in and give you one more idea of a size of the Prestosuchus. Again, I don't think we need many comparisons, because if you are familiar with the Mattel line, you'll know roughly what the size range for the Strike Attacks would be already, but if not, then I would like to think at some point you probably would have purchased a Velociraptor or a Dilophosaurus, so hopefully this will help to give you an idea of the size. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dino Tracker's Prestosuchus, the Strike Attack Prestosuchus, is pretty cool, but it's not great. You know, it does fall a little flat when it comes to actually looking like a Prestosuchus, like I've stated a few times. It's definitely very interesting, and as I said, Mattel really took some artistic liberties with this one, definitely gave it their best shot of making it look a bit different from what the real animal would look like. But that being said, and now excluding that for the rest of the review because I've mentioned it so many times, I think it looks pretty cool for what it is. Again, I could absolutely see this being the type of design that the team would come up with for a Jurassic World film, or for Camp Cretaceous or something if they got a new season and they wanted to include a Prestosuchus. I could definitely see this being the way that the creature would appear in the film, because they usually try to make them a little bit interesting looking, and that sort of sail-like or fin-like look following the majority of the body would definitely help to create a unique look for this creature. And on top of that, the interlocking teeth giving it that sort of crocodilian type look is definitely something that as well would be a little bit memorable for this species. But as a whole, again, when it comes to a Jurassic World version of a Prestosuchus, I think it looks kind of cool, and definitely sports some really nice detail throughout, really high quality, really vibrant detail on this, and a pretty fun action feature, which, is kind of what you would expect for a creature like this. Nothing too amazing, but it looks okay and it works nicely. We also have some nice articulation, which is fun, something you always find on the Mattel figures. And the paintwork is okay. It's not anything to write home about. It's definitely not the flashiest color scheme Mattel has ever come up with, but it looks alright for what it is. And again, there always could be improvements when it comes to the paint, but overall, I think it looks decent as far as the paintwork goes. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on Big Bad Toy Store. You can purchase the entire wave of these. I think it's out of stock right now, but it does come back into stock normally, so it's just a matter of time. It may already be in stock for all I know, because I actually had seen it over the last week. It came in and out of stock a few times, so I will include that link in the description. Make sure you check that link and see if they have them in stock, and maybe you can grab yourself one of these very interesting Prestosuchus figures. And also, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.